Really excited to have everyone here. Thanks so much for joining. I know there's a lot going on right now, so really appreciate everyone who's listening in. I'm Kyle. I run content and social here for Avalabs. Really excited to welcome our special guests from Security Token Market and Securitize. We're going to be talking about the new crowdfund offering that these platforms are bringing to Avalanche and the importance of these tokenization efforts and how that weaves within the blockchain technology and how it's perfect for the Avalanche ecosystem. So why don't we jump in? Going to start off, Kyle, why don't we start off with you and give us a little intro on yourself?
Hey everybody, my name is Kyle Sonlin. I'm the CEO of Security Token Market, and I have been focused on security tokens and been in this industry since 2017, 2018, when we launched Security Token Market in 2018, which tracks these markets. We're really a data platform and a media company that essentially tracks investment banking moves on chain. So what's going on from financial institutions, what's going on from real asset issuers, people that own real estate, own equities, own debt products. We know that blockchain can solve these problems from a financing perspective, but I think that a lot of people never quite understood how that happens. And it's quite a bit more complicated from a financial perspective than what we see from crypto and NFTs. And so we've really dedicated our entire company to that mission. Before that, I've been in blockchain for quite some time prior, specifically focused on consensus mechanisms and distributed consensus for artificial intelligence systems. And I also have a background in investing on the primary and secondary markets and mostly finance stuff. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm also really fortunate to be joined by Megan Nyevolt, our head of media. She's an unbelievable superstar. And Megan, definitely jump in and introduce yourself as well.
Hi, Kyle, and everybody. I don't know if superstar describes me, but thank you. I'm head of media here at Security Token Market, and I oversee all the media procurement, placement, development, facilitate the external ops. I am from Colorado, live in Miami now. Kind of started my career in payments technology, moved over to social media with TikTok, and followed my dreams, came to Miami to chase the tech scene. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys. And Avalanche is such an amazing community. And it's super exciting to be doing this offering, with your community and involvement.
Awesome. Well, thanks for both of you for joining. Really excited to have you and hear more about it. But let's kick it over to Mike from Securitize to introduce himself.
Thanks so much, Kyle. And my name is Mike Rogers. I'm the head of crowdfunding for Securitize Markets. So Securitize is digitally transforming the private capital markets using Web3 technology. And we believe that this is important because most stakeholder value, as everybody has probably seen over the past decade, a lot of value for companies like, say, Facebook, Google, Uber, they've all, most of the value has been generated on the private capital markets before companies go public. And these markets that really are not accessible to the masses and really only for accredited investors and institutions have most of the returns. And that's why we like working with pioneers like STM, who are trying to democratize this access using Web3 technologies like Avalanche. And that's actually where we come into play as a facilitator of this. So I really am pretty passionate about this industry. I used to work in legacy finance, but I've been in digital assets for 4 years now, and seeing the advancement of the digital asset securities market over that time frame and following STM and all the great coverage that they have has really shed some light on where we're going to be heading. And we think that crowdfunding in particular offers a unique value proposition because it can award companies like STM and their fans and supporters and basically provide them with ownership in exchange for the capital that they need to grow their businesses and communities.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Really excited to have you here as well. And last but not least, Morgan, our awesome director of BD here at Avalabs. You want to give it a quick intro?
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. And I was going to say, guys, you're giving away all the alpha in the first 5 minutes, but really excited to dive in. Just by way of background, I'm Morgan Krupetsky, Director of Business Development for Institutions and Capital Markets at Avalabs. I do have a traditional finance background. I worked in the big banking industry for the past 12 years and joined to really kind of bridge the gap between, more traditional institutions and Web3 blockchain digital asset world. So really excited to be here and to be talking to you guys. I would just start off by saying that, a key part of our role at Avalabs is to really grow and cultivate the Avalanche ecosystem. And, I'm sure that this community is very likely aware, but for those that are kind of new and joining in, just to level set, Avalanche is a proof of stake layer 1 blockchain. It's an open programmable smart contracts platform that's seen really tremendous growth across DeFi, gaming, NFTs, enterprises, and institutions. And we're still relatively young. Our mainnet launched in September of 2020. Our C chain launched in February of 2021. So, really kind of impressive growth just despite the short amount of time. But included within those efforts are really those around tokenization, especially more recently real world asset tokenization, which we'll definitely get into in this discussion. And instead of just kind of hearing me talk about it, because no one wants to hear me talk for an hour straight, I'm really excited to have Kyle and Megan from STM here and Mike from Securitize to really kind of talk about this exciting initiative that we're collectively driving forward for our current community, but also something that we hope will also be used to welcome new members to our community as well. And that is through, crowdfunding through tokenization. So before we, dive in, I will say, let me just again emphasize that nothing in today's session should be considered financial advice of any kind. All investments entail risk, so it's extremely important that you take the time to do your own research. It should also be stated that crowdfunding may be highly illiquid, so no one should invest unless they can sustain a loss of their investment. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. Kyle, let me turn it over to you first. Tell us about this announcement that Security Token Market made recently. Like, what are we here to talk about exactly?
Yeah, so we're really, really excited. As I mentioned, Security Token Market, we've been doing a ton of media and research and data tracking of the blockchain industry now for 3 or 4 years. And we've built a pretty strong community of people excited about what's going on in the space. And we were fortunate enough to announce that we're going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign of our own. We're going to be tokenizing our own offering. We're going to be creating an investment in our company that anybody can participate in, not only from international jurisdictions, but we're kind of bucking the trend of accreditation when it comes to investing into these deals and into early stage companies. And so we're really driving our own investment product to market, working with Securitize to do that. And we're incredibly excited to be working with Avalanche on the tokenization component to really drive a Web3 crowdfunding experience, which we see as one of the first of its kind and a really groundbreaking opportunity to blend the financing perspective in the investment world, as well as the blockchain and tokenization space. And so it's really, really exciting. It's taken us over to about 12 months from announcement and planning to actually bring this to market alongside a lot of our partners. And so, we've been incredibly, incredibly excited to put this together and share some more details. And obviously to have two of the best partners in the world between the Avalanche blockchain and Avalabs, who's been instrumental in helping us through the process, as well as Securitize, who's done a tremendous job. And Mike is here, so we thank him for being here on this panel as well to talk a little bit about their role in this process. And so it's a really exciting moment for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think we'll get, more into the details around the announcement itself, later on. But maybe Kyle and Megan, I would love to kind of just use this opportunity for our community to get to know you guys at Security Token Market and like STM as a company. I know you guys reviewed it at a high level, during your intros, but you've been on this journey for quite some time now. I think it would be great if you could tell us a bit more about yourselves, about the journey that you've been on, and then what you're setting out to do with STM from like a target state vision and, what your mission is.
Sure. Yeah, I'll kick it off and then we can pass it over to Megan to get some of her thoughts. But the first thing I want to just take one moment to define, and maybe a lot of people that are listening here on the call are maybe unfamiliar with the terminology that we're using. So when I say the word security token, that sounds kind of crazy. You may not have heard of what that is before. What we're talking about is is a security from the sense of an investment contract. So when you look at the SEC here in the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission, right? This is not internet security. This is an investment security. And really what that kind of boils down to is real investments. So equities, real estate, debt products, things that are real investments in the real world. You might see them on the stock market, or you may see private deals that include these things. And these are real investments in assets. And so what we're doing is we're essentially trying to leverage blockchain technology in all of the same ways that we've seen it being used in cryptocurrencies or in NFTs and DAOs and many of these other exciting opportunities, and translating that same technology into our existing capital markets infrastructure. Because while creating crypto and NFTs is incredibly exciting by building new asset classes, we also can recognize the incredible value that exists in the traditional asset classes, right? Okay, yes, we can have new crypto assets and we can have new NFTs and things like that, but why not also consider the stock market for the metaverse? How are we going to be investing in the IP, in the revenue, in the actual foundations and companies that are being created in this journey and in this revolution? And so that's what we really dedicated our entire business towards, is figuring out how we can build sustainable infrastructure for the securities world, for the investment bankers of the world. How can we traditionally, take those businesses and apply Web3 technology to build more transparent markets, more fair markets that allow for any investor to get access into deals, allows any company to be able to realize the value and benefits of accessing new investors from around the world, as well as all of the great benefits around leverage and decentralized protocols and what that can mean for how these assets are moved. And so Security Token Market is really trying to spread that gospel of security tokens, help people understand through education what's actually going on here. You see or do your own research all the time. Well, it can be really hard to research when the asset you're investing in doesn't actually have any real backing to it. It's really just kind of something that's made up. And so we've seen the securities space as something that can really provide some additional value to investors, not to mention the fact that the market cap has held very strong over the last couple of months, despite a lot of the market turmoil, because these investors are investing in things that they have a long-term belief in from a real value perspective. And so that's what we've really dedicated ourselves toward. And Security Token Market has done that in a couple ways. From a data perspective, we've hand-tracked prices of these assets moving from place to place for years. Jonas Schulman, our head of communication, and I have spent years in the beginning tracking these things in Excel sheets, creating our own reports, our own analysis. Now we've certainly grown and have our own tech and development team that tracks and monitors a lot of these assets programmatically via API, as well as pulling from a lot of different sources from around the world, because we're talking about obviously the exchange data and what's going on from a financial perspective, but these are regulated assets. They are filing with different jurisdictions around the world, so we can monitor what's actually going on from a legal perspective. We obviously can see the blockchain-based piece here because these are tokenized assets. These do exist on blockchains and leverage a lot of the benefits of the transparency there, as well as smart contracts and automation for a compliance perspective. And of course, since they're real assets, we can also begin to start to manage and monitor what the actual underlying asset is. Like, okay, there's a token, and okay, it's investing in something, but there is something there. Is it a real estate property? Has it been audited? Has it been valued? Or is it a company? Do they have disclosures, and do they have financials that we can see? And so trying to pull all of that together from a data perspective, visualizing that through reports and through our website, as well as through a lot of the amazing media content. We've got 6 fully produced shows, including a full news desk. We've got Spilling the NFT, which Megan is a host of, and which is a women-driven, led, created, produced, and syndicated show trying to help understand and build those bridges into the blockchain space. As Megan mentioned, we're here in Miami, so we have a Crypto Con Leche, a fully Spanish show dedicated towards helping the Latin American and Hispanic audience understand what's going on in the crypto revolution. And we have a whole host of other shows that we can dive into that are really fun, targeting different demographics and very different styles that are really, really fun. So we try to make a lot of great content, a lot of fun educational stuff, and then of course trying to display the financial transparency that's come to be expected from the blockchain space and helping drive a lot of those concepts and precedents through into capital markets.
Kyle, I strive to have your energy. I'm just so energized, like listening to you. But let me just ask you guys a follow on, and Megan, just maybe just on some of the shows that you guys produce. Like, who is your target audience or target client or target people that you want to work with? It seems like it's pretty diverse, but can you talk a little bit about that from an STM perspective?
Yeah, so as Kyle mentioned, we have multiple shows, all geared toward different kind of people and different levels as well. We have a full news desk every Monday. We release on the Security Token Show, which is our most dedicated show to security tokens and that ecosystem. But we also have the show that I developed with Spilling the NFT, which is definitely geared towards beginners. It's fun. It's Jessica and I, and we are, sharing a little bit more, trying to get more women in the ecosystem, but not only in the security token ecosystem, just crypto and blockchain in general. We've talked about AVAX on there. And we additionally are launching other shows coming later this year. We're just really trying to make fun content in this city. Being in the heart of Miami is really energizing, as you can hear from Kyle. We're all very excited to be doing this in, what is trying to position themselves as the kind of breakout tech capital. So, it's really fantastic to be able to develop a variety of shows, and not just geared towards security tokens, but just the greater industry in general, because I feel like we're all supporting each other. Although, we don't want to create division and say we are strictly security token driven, because we are not. It takes a village, and we're supporting everybody involved. So definitely check out our YouTube. Of course, it's linked in my bio, Security Token Markets bio, and you'll see plenty of our content if you follow our channels.
I really want to come down and hang out with you guys in Miami. That's definitely on my to-do list, but maybe not when it's 100 degrees.
It's not. It was 85 today. It wasn't even that hot. Anybody that hasn't been to Miami recently, you'd be surprised. It's so much hotter everywhere else.
But Mike, let me bring you into the conversation, and I'd like to hone in a little bit more on the security part of the security token concept. I know, Kyle, you went into it a little bit, but from a securitized perspective, you guys provide companies like STM with a fully digital end-to-end tokenization solution. So, I'm sure you can sell this better than I can, but you include transfer agent services, fundraising, liquidity provision, investor KYC, all powered by blockchain technology. So in other words, you guys help companies looking to issue securities do so, or security tokens do so in a way that's consistent with compliance standards. So generally speaking, we all know the crypto world writ large is still hoping for a broader regulatory framework, and Securitize is driving forward security tokenization efforts within the current regulatory frameworks. And I know that, laws, rules, and regulations might not be the most glamorous of topics, but they obviously are important in terms of providing, those compliance guardrails. So we know that we're all doing things the right way. So with that, can you maybe just talk to us a bit about the regulation that's kind of enabling or allowing for the creation of security tokens and for crowdfunding in general? What does the regulatory framework look like, and what are we working within right now?
Thanks, Morgan. And yeah, I think that Kyle and Megan and everybody else at STM can really attest that a big part of our jobs is focusing on education and teaching others. It helps when you have a young, energetic, passionate Mike Bloomberg, like Kyle over here, who really kind of goes out, as you said, and spreads the gospel with data backing as well. So what we really are doing is we're using our business ecosystem, which you mentioned has a transfer agent. We also have a broker dealer, as well as what you call an alternative trading system. So we basically utilize Web3 technology, and Web3 is a big buzzword. So when we say Web3, the foundational technology of Web3 is blockchain technology. You also have that which allows smart contracts, tokens, and in this case, we're talking about security tokens, as Kyle alluded to before. I like analogies. So when I'm on calls with potential clients and also customers too, I like to say that we're basically putting a digital wrapper around equity and debt instruments. And we're doing that using blockchain technology and digital assets. So what security tokens really are is they're the Web3 version of financial securities. We're really just kind of migrating all of these instruments to Web3, and we're doing it in a way that is consistent with the regulatory frameworks on the private capital markets. So in particular, we're using what's called Reg CF, or regulation crowdfunding. That is one of the frameworks from what is called the Jobs Act, which I know we'll get into a little bit more later. But essentially, that's the framework that we're using to make sure that everything is compliant. We're bringing all of the rules and regulations and transfer restrictions, and basically knowing that these aren't bad actors and that these aren't going out into the la-la land of crypto. But we're actually utilizing the technology and the networks and the wallets to provide a real world use case that's outside of just price go up or price go down, basically speculation.
Thanks, Mike. And I think maybe between both of you guys, Mike and Kyle, both Security Token Market and Securitize has obviously been at this for quite some time now. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, obviously we're still pretty early in the game, but even so, I feel like you guys are pretty native to the scene. So I think it would help for us to kind of get a sense of like how you both have seen kind of the evolution in interest in not just tokenization, but real world asset tokenization and security tokenization, like over the years. Do you feel like there's been growth or not? Like, what does that look like thematically? And, just taking that step back and kind of providing that overview.
Yeah, I can maybe lead us off there. And then if you want to jump in after me, Mike, and add some color, feel free. But I think we have a really, really fun story, origin story around this crowdfunding offering. And that is because Herwig, my co-founder, and I have been, as I said, working in this space for a long time. And if anybody's been in crypto before the 2017 bull run, you may remember, and even during that period, security tokens had a lot of hype behind them because people saw the value of attaching real world assets to the blockchain. But it didn't quite happen as quickly as at the time ICOs did in 2017, or as we saw in 2021, the NFT scene. And that's really just because there's a lot of compliance and a lot of regulation that you have to go through, right? If you're actually going to follow the rules, you need to follow the rules, as opposed to in some other industries where, you can sometimes get away with the fact that there's nothing defined for how you should act. So therefore you can just do things in general. So crypto has traditionally moved a little bit faster than the security token industry. But I think that is actually a significant benefit for our industry because everything in the space has moved in a way that is very compliant. And so we've actually seen some pretty significant growth. Every year, the market cap has grown 5 to 10x every year over the last 4. We're now at, I think, $17 billion as of market cap as of today, as last. We were, sub $1 billion last year. So we've seen a pretty significant growth rate in just that period of time. But I think that the best way to really walk through that in a fun analogy is back in 2019, Herwig and I were working in this space. We were trying to drive thought leadership, helping banks and financial service providers understand what's going on in this industry, as well as issuers and other people going on. And we decided to start a podcast. We called it the Security Token Show, where Herwig and I picked the articles that we saw throughout the week that we found were interesting about specifically the securities world and how blockchain is being leveraged for tokenization. And our first episode was actually on and spurned by the fact that the SEC, which is the police of the financial system for the US markets, they came out and said, hey, the ability to fundraise through a crowdfunding offering we see could be improved. So you should submit your feedback of how it could be improved. And so our first episode was actually our proposed changes to that regulation. And we actually were able to get about 50 people to co-sign it alongside of us. Some of our first early listeners were able to co-sign that submission. And we submitted that directly to the SEC with our feedback. And lo and behold, our feedback, specifically Herwig as the publisher, was directly cited in the SEC's choice to actually expand crowdfunding regulations. Because back in 2019, through a crowdfunding offering, and when I say crowdfunding, I'm specifically referring to the regulation crowdfunding exemption. And that means that anybody can invest. That doesn't matter how rich or wealthy you are, if you're accredited or not. It doesn't matter if you're in the US or outside of the US. And so with the crowdfunding exemption, you actually could only raise up to 1.07 million. Not totally sure why the 07 was tacked on there, but certainly from a $1 million mark, they actually expanded that to 5 million. They 5x'd it. And that specific increase was cited by the feedback we created in our first episode back in 2019. Fast forward to now, we're on over, I think, 150 or something along those lines. We've done it almost every week for the better part of 3+ years. And we've seen not only significant traction in our podcast, in our platform, in our website, and in our brand, but now we find it's a super cool opportunity that after a few years of building in this industry, watching best practices, helping ideate through some of the challenges that come through working with the regular capital markets, especially as smaller players, like a lot of us are, a lot of upstart companies, a lot of new tech companies doing some of this stuff for the first time. And then not to mention the tokenization piece throws a whole wrench into everything. So a lot of this is for the first time because no one's ever done a Web3 crowdfund before. So going through a lot of these processes has been quite a journey, but it's a really exciting one that I think our team specifically is positioned to take advantage of because of that really cool journey. And if you listen throughout the podcast over those 3+ years, we've ideated and tracked our entire journey through this process. And now 3+ years later, we're so excited to be able to bring this offering to the world and really explore the power of tokenization. And we've seen this industry grow tremendously from the largest investment banks that leverage blockchain to issue their own bonds, their own blockchain debt products from bank to bank. We've seen corporate bonds be issued, like from fat brands, actually getting rated higher on the public debt markets because of the fact that it had blockchain transparency, specifically noted by Morningstar. We've seen companies like Exodus, who have raised $75 million through a Reg A+ from retail investors from their network of people around the world. We've seen tokenized exchanges get approved for, like the Boston Securities Token Exchange, which is rivaling NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. We've seen ATS approvals out the wazoo, which was something unfathomable when we launched these companies, that we would have marketplaces in the US with over a dozen now that are capable of facilitating digital securities offerings and focusing on specifically on blockchain-based capital markets. And so we've seen a lot of these regulatory pieces happen before we've seen the offerings come out, which seems counterintuitive. It doesn't sound quite as sexy for the average person, but when we're talking about securities, this is the way to do it. All of our firms and all of our industry have taken the proper precautions to make sure it's going the right way. And there's really no fear of anyone coming in and saying any of this stuff is not allowed or not legal because of the care that the entire ecosystem has put into making sure we do it the right way. And I'm just so passionate that now we're really starting to see that the floodgates are open and that other issuers like myself and our company are able to take advantage of this in the future, hopefully because of a lot of the paths that we've been able to pave with our teams to bring this product to market.
I actually had no idea that that it was partially because of your guys' feedback that the Reg CF was amended. I think that's super, super interesting. Mike, I don't know how you're going to follow that, but I want to hear from you from a securitized perspective, how you guys have seen kind of, an evolution of interest, both from the issuer side as well as from the user side or investor side. What's that landscape? What does it look like now? What did it look like a few years ago? How have you seen kind of things shape up?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do it. But before even saying that, Kyle, you touched on some pretty fantastic points, specifically with the Jobs Act and what Reg CF really allowed for. It's really a gateway, and that gateway has expanded pretty significantly because $1 million or 1.07, how you put it. I know it's pretty funny how they had the 0.07 tacked on there, but when you're going from that amount to almost 5x that amount to $5 million, $5 million is a pretty serious amount of capital, especially for startups and early stage growth companies. So it's really a serious amount of capital that can be raised by those that really want to actually turn their ideas into a reality. Reg CF kind of used to be kind of the little brother to some of those other exemptions, but now last year alone, over $1 billion was actually raised using that exemption, and it's on track to double in 2022. So we really look at tokenization and the evolution, and myself having been in digital assets for 4 years, and I worked in real estate at Blackstone, so the private equity firm beforehand. We came in, it sounds like, Kyle, into digital assets at the same time back in the ICO era. And the ICO era of digital assets, it was a completely different ballgame. It was a lot more Wild West. The regulatory environment was pretty loose, and now things are becoming a lot more clearly defined. We just have to open up the Wall Street Journal. People still get that delivered physically, or you could just go on STM.com or basically Bloomberg or anything of that nature, and you could see all of the headlines of the regulatory actions that are kind of taking place right now. And as they're being more kind of strictly defined, that concept of what a utility token really is, that argument back in the ICO era back in 2017, that was really the main argument that most used to make in claiming that they are a utility token. Now it's kind of the reverse. It's really like, okay, prove to us that you're not a security. And that's really what's happening with the concept of institutionalization, which really helps with adoption. And I think everybody that's here that's passionate about the digital assets industry and really has been in this the whole time, really can see that just looking on basically watching a Knicks game and you see ads for Coinbase or pretty much any of the things that are really starting to like trend within society, within film, it's really starting to kind of spread the idea, the virus, if you will. And having thought leaders like STM shedding data-backed light on the security token industry and documenting the developments and shepherding the crowd, and then having the infrastructure players like Avalanche making these transactions more affordable and creating the networks and applications that will stand the test of time. This is really where we're heading for this being the future financial infrastructure of the world. And that's kind of what we've gone from. We've gone from just basically a concept of what a security token is and people thinking it was a cool idea to now there are actual use cases and instruments and ways for it to be integrated with the traditional financial system and eventually be the gateway to really migrate the entire financial system to Web3 when that time comes.
I think I would also just add to that, and that's great, and thank you so much, Mike. I would maybe just add to that, just given the crypto winter that we're in, I think there's been kind of an increase in interest in tokens with like real world utility and real world assets backing them, and so I think maybe this just happens to be a time that seems to be right for people interested in a different type of token. And obviously, when we're talking about securities tokens, like we all said, there's obviously a lot more kind of regulatory, processes to go through. But I think that it's interesting just from a timing perspective that hopefully we'll start seeing interest grow in this space, just given the fact that there is actual real world utility, real world assets backing these tokens. So, we'll see how it pans out, but I think that, all of the kind of ingredients are in place to really see this space grow in the next few years. But with that, just bringing it back kind of full circle, Kyle, to the announcement you guys made. I think you mentioned in a recent Twitter thread that you guys are, not just talking the talk, but you guys are walking the walk and actually tokenizing yourselves. So just bringing it back full circle, maybe Kyle, tell us kind of why you're so excited about this raise in particular, why you chose Securitize as your broker-dealer partner, why you chose Avalanche as your blockchain partner on this initiative, and kind of your thinking about that.
Sure. Yeah. So when we talk about tokenization, really, I think the fun analogy and hopefully the way that it makes it a little easier for someone to understand if they're still wrapping their head around some of these concepts is that essentially what we're doing here is we're doing an equity crowdfund, or we're doing a crowdfund through a security token offering, as we mentioned, through Securitize. So we're doing an investment on their platform. But the only difference is that with this platform, you get a digital receipt as opposed to a physical receipt. So what we're talking about here is that when you make your investment, instead of getting a yes, you've made your investment and here's the receipt of the fact that you own it and now you can just sit on it forever, which is really what happens in most equity crowdfunding campaigns. Most of these offerings, you're investing in something, whether it's actually ownership in the company or whether it's through a safe note or some of these other structures that are pretty standard for different crowdfunding portals. What essentially you're getting is a piece of paper that says you own whatever you've invested in. And that's pretty much it. There's not a lot else that you can do with it aside from hope that maybe one day the company gets acquired or something like that, where your shares maybe get redeemed for a much larger value than what you were able to invest at. And that's something that I think is a cool idea, right, for anybody to be able to participate in these investment opportunities. But the problem is that I think the average person wants the ability to be able to trade these things. The average person would feel much more comfortable investing in a stock or something like that, where if they need the cash, they can sell it. Or if they see a 3 times return, they can sell that. They don't need to wait for it to reach a 30 times return for them to actually get any money back from their investment. And so the cool thing about tokenization is that it does allow us to build an interoperable system and leverage a lot of the great things that have been created by the traditional blockchain industry. One of those things that's really amazing about the tokenization space is that we can enable future listing onto secondary markets and can create some of those interesting economic models that happen behind those things. On top of that, it's actually, you can make this investment straight from your MetaMask. You can hold these assets directly into your MetaMask account because of the fact that Avalanche is an EVM capable and compatible blockchain, which I think is incredibly exciting. You get a lot of the benefits of the simplicity of Solidity and a lot of the smart contract operations that can be built through EVM compatible blockchains while still capitalizing on incredibly low gas fees, which was something that was super important for us with regards to this crowdfund. I'm sure anybody here in the space has either experienced firsthand or has heard about some of these crazy high gas fees when it comes to making either an investment or purchasing something or buying an NFT. The gas fees can really be a significant hindrance because it could be hundreds or more dollars just for a single transaction. And that's just really not going to be practical, especially if we're talking about trading. You're not going to want to trade a couple $100 and pay a couple $100 to make that trade. That would be ridiculous, right? So I think that Avalanche's ability to really handle the high frequency volumes, as well as I mentioned, being super compatible. The fact that most people have heard of MetaMask. Most people have used MetaMask. It's the largest, I believe, certainly in browser wallet. It's really one of the only ones that I'm familiar with. And the fact that Avalanche is compatible with that platform makes it a super simple experience to be able to manage your assets, to be able to purchase or potentially one day trade if we can list and do some of those fun things that we've seen from other security tokens that we're certainly working towards. Are really, really important things for us. So, and then again, not to mention how amazing the Avalanche community has been, and not only from the viewers, which thank you so much for anybody that's tuned in. Really appreciate you, and there's been so much Avalanche love. We've done all kinds of amazing cross collaboration with you guys, and I love doing that. Look forward to do it more. But I really want to give a big shout out to Avalabs and the rest of the team there, because everyone that we've worked with from the Avalanche team has been so supportive and so amazing at helping this happen. And I think that was something that was really, really attractive to us from the very beginning as we were speaking with a lot of different blockchains and a lot of different providers. The fact that both Securitize and Avalanche were so incredibly supportive, they understood our vision, they saw the future and the opportunity here. Avalanche has always been focused on compliance and offering these things. And a lot of the team has always seen securities as a huge use case for blockchain technology, which is something that not every blockchain has seen. Not every blockchain has been incredibly supportive of this industry, despite the fact that, in my opinion, it's so significantly larger than crypto, right? You look at the crypto markets right now, it's what, 1 trillion, 2 trillion at the peak, something like that, maybe 3 if you want to count some of the other private assets. And yet the securities markets are hundreds of trillions of dollars. This is so much larger. This is an exponentially larger industry that I think that seeing blockchains that support that, embrace that, has been incredible, and specifically Avalanche leading the pack. And so it's been a great time working with them. And then Securitize for us really was a tremendous opportunity. Securitize is one of the only brokers that we're familiar with that's had successful campaigns in the tokenization space. They've issued successful security tokens onto the asset markets as well as onto the secondary markets. And they've been a tremendous team. And working with them has been a very smooth process for us. Their ability to understand both the financial side as well as the blockchain side, I think, was really the biggest key there, because not every financial service provider, not every traditional broker is going to be super comfortable with the idea of using blockchain, with integrating with different blockchains and what that potentially means. And they were not only totally on our side, but they actually helped drive the vision for what this campaign could look like. And doing a collaboration effort with them was super exciting, and a ton of credit to their entire team for working around the clock to bring this product to market and helping us do that. So I think for us, it was really a no-brainer for both the blockchain as well as the broker. Both Securitize and Avalanche have been tremendous partners and ones that we could not recommend more to everyone else.
Yeah, and just to echo that point, I mean, it was really a no-brainer for us on the Securitize side when it comes to first partnering with STM. We both have a collective and shared vision for what the future of Web3 could look like, from the standpoint of bringing in securities from the traditional and legacy world into this new world of the shared and ownership internet that we all kind of believe is the future. And realistically, if you look up at one of the pinned tweets, we actually have a slide deck that kind of very simply shows on slide 4 and 5 our business ecosystem, and having Avalanche as the blockchain for the Web3 version, where you can actually utilize essentially an atomic swap and switch the USDC for whatever digital asset security is being offered by the issuer, all within one transaction on a blockchain, and using basically the hash from the wallet to uniquely sign the subscription agreements. It was a no-brainer for us to actually have Avalanche as the first network where we were doing that, because as Kyle mentioned, I mean, I used to be a research analyst at the Block Research before coming to Securitize, and we put out some really great long-form reports. One of them that they put out on layer 2s, there's a reason why layer 2s exist for a lot of other networks. I mean, from the Block's layer 2 report, 1.3 billion in the last year and a half alone has been spent on layer 2 from venture capitalists. And that's because in 2021, $10 billion was spent on transaction fees for the Ethereum network. And we love Ethereum. We think Ethereum's fantastic. And that's why it's actually one of the 4 networks and wallets that we have on our platform, and also utilizing our tokenization engine. But we really think that from a pragmatic standpoint, Avalanche was the best one to go with in the start that we needed to rely upon for STM's offering and those that we have coming in the future as well. Because realistically, having no downtime is really important, and also just the speed and ease of use. And when you're an issuer like STM, you really want to keep the transaction fees down when you're trying to create these securities. And also when you're somebody that's purchasing them, you really don't want to have a high transaction fees, because that just kind of eats into your investment. And we think that really both parties were aligned with the same mission of being able to seamlessly offer these types of access to investments that most wouldn't really be able to get at an early stage, and to do it in a way that is secure, that they can really trust what they're getting, and that nobody else could really access it. And that's how we actually program everything from the DS protocol, which is our proprietary protocol. That's at the bottom of the stack if you look at slide 5 of the deck. And you'll see that really governs everything that we do. And that's how we're able to bring the laws and regulations of old into this new world.
I think I'm going to bring you guys onto all my partner calls so you can just talk up Avalanche for me. But this has been great. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I think one thing, Kyle, you also mentioned, which was key, is the idea that tokenization enables secondary market trading and liquidity. And I think that's something that, obviously from a Reg CF perspective, enabled crowds or masses to be able to invest in different types of, private market securities. But it's really the tokenization aspect that enables the liquidity component, which I think historically was missing. And then, from an end state perspective, ultimately being able to deploy these tokens in different DeFi protocols. And obviously that's down the line from a regulatory perspective, but even being able to kind of borrow against them and really kind of use them in a real world way. I think we're all really excited about. But let me just ask, maybe to close up, and before we open it up for questions, we've had a chance to learn more about security tokenization, about STM. And so, Mike, why don't you take this one? For those who are, interested in learning more specifically about the terms of the raise and actually kind of how to invest, can you tell us, like, how do people go about getting involved, and what does that look like from a securitized perspective?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, I can't, talk about the specific terms on this call, but I would really highly recommend that everybody go to our website, which is securitize.io, and all of the information on the offering will be there. On our landing page, it really shows the 3 simple steps of how to basically access any of the offerings that we have on our broker dealer portal. And, just want to be cognizant of, basically the risks and all those other things where it's important to recognize that a lot of these things are early stage investments, and, that basically everything that you need to know is within the portal that we have and all the required documentation and disclosures. And it's really explained in quite a narrative way, where it's not very quantitative or too much financial jargon, and that's really the beauty of a Reg CF offering. So again, just go to securitize.io and you'll be able to see the offering on that site.
And I would just emphasize it is very user friendly. So for those of you who might just be hesitant to kind of get into all of it, it is extremely user friendly. Everything from creating a login to all the documentation that you need. I think you guys have done a really good job about kind of laying it all out in narrative terms, to your point. So thank you for that. So let me just actually, Kyle, turn it over to you. I know we have a few minutes left for questions. Maybe you can kind of help lead us through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to reiterate, thank you guys so much for joining. That was very, very informative, and I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone here did as well. So we have a couple, we could probably take a couple questions from the audience here, and a couple reminders. One, you have to be on mobile to speak. So if you're on mobile, you can request to be a speaker. And the second thing is we obviously want to respect the time of our guests here and the time they've allotted to come join us. So let's make sure the questions are like directly about security token market and Securitize and the offering they have here. I know there's a lot going on in the crypto space, but we want to focus here with this topic and our special guest. So I will add people up one by one and see if it works on your audio. Usman, you're up first.
Hey everyone, thanks for allowing me to come up here. Really enjoyed the conversation. I really learned a lot as well. I actually come from a TradeFi background, trading traditional financial assets, so I definitely see the value of securitizing them and backing them on the blockchain. My question to you guys would be, I'm sure that you guys have received some regulatory pushback from regulators who are kind of old-fashioned or don't really understand the technology themselves. So how have you guys dealt with those regulators? How has the process been with discussing with people up in Washington and kind of getting your platform out there to the broader financial markets?
That's probably an answer for Mike. I'm going to let him take that one away.
Yeah, I think that we have a very open dialogue, and what the beauty is of our business ecosystem is that we have the pieces that are in the traditional financial system. So we have our broker dealer, which is regulated by FINRA, and we also have the transfer agent, which is registered with the SEC. So we basically go through all of the processes and procedures with our fantastic in-house compliance team and legal team that have worked all on Wall Street and also in DC as members of regulators, where basically it's really about engagement. It's about having an open dialogue, really that education component, which we mentioned at the beginning. We're all educating and kind of really teaching them about the technologies and what they really can facilitate. And we really emphasize that we're still bringing in the laws and regulations and frameworks into this new world, and that the technology is just a tool really for efficiency. So once they get that, it becomes pretty clear, and we answer any and all questions that they have, and really just try to follow everything to the T of the law.
Mike, I would maybe just add to that some of the more recent kind of regulatory pushback that we've seen has been around whether certain tokens are considered securities or not. And from your guys' perspective, it seems like we're taking the utmost of like conservative views and saying that you guys, it's like we're being very clear that all of these are securities, right? And so therefore that side of the debate isn't even there. Like we're just moving forward with this, assuming that they're securities, taking them as securities, and then therefore ensuring that you guys follow kind of the utmost of stringent like regulatory requirements as it relates to the token. So I would just say that you're taking it very kind of like conservatively and in the way such that, the regulatory pushback might not be as pertinent maybe, just because we're being so conservative in that respect.
Yeah, we take the viewpoint exactly. I think that's really a great point there, Morgan, is that we basically, that's the stance that we take with the broker dealer. Everything that we have on that platform, we take the guessing game out of it. We declare that it is security beforehand. And that's really kind of, it might be like an apples and orange is type of thing to what you might be seeing with some of the other platforms that are out there in digital assets. But we fall under the broker dealer component and umbrella. That's why we are under, if you were to look at the industry as overall umbrella of digital assets is a very broad term. We're in the subsegment of what is now called digital asset securities, but security tokens kind of linguistically the same vernacular. But we are in that segment that we're saying everything is a security that we're working with, and these are the regulations that we fall under.
Awesome. Thanks for the answers there, and Usman, thanks for a great question. So let's try the next person here. Let's see, where did it go? All right, Brick BC, you're up. Let's see if this works. All right, go ahead. Looks like you're still on mute there. Go ahead.
Oh, how are you? It's Lewis Alexa here from Australia. How are you all? All well?
Doing well, thanks.
Hey man, how are you?
Very well, very well. This question is actually for Kyle from STM. As Kyle knows, we tokenize real estate property here in Australia. One of the things that it's quite a common question is that we get in terms of what blockchain to tokenize on. I'll flip this one to you, Kyle. Can you sort of say two key points in terms of when you decided to do it on the Avalanche blockchain? What was the sort of those two key points that was obviously you guys decided to mint on the Avalanche blockchain?
It's a great question. I think that the first thing that is important to note is that when we're talking about securities, there is the reality of the fact that a lot of these things are still managed by centralized ledgers and centralized parties, and that's really just because of regulation. So not only that, but when we're talking about real world assets, the permanence of a blockchain really doesn't matter because you can't have your security token stolen. Let's say I have a security token in a wallet and it gets hacked. We've heard about this before, right? You get hacked and someone steals your Bitcoin and you can never get it back again. That's just not the case with a security because we know exactly we've identified who the person is that should own those shares, and we know exactly who they are. So if you report as an investor that your shares were removed from your wallet, well, we can just burn those from circulation and remint new ones. And that's one of the benefits of a security token that you don't necessarily have with the traditional crypto space. So a lot of the blockchain needs for a security really come with interoperability. So when I'm looking at my 2 points, I'm looking at the first one, which is interoperability. How connected is that blockchain with the greater system? And so the more that they have integrations with a lot of the players down the line, especially with securities where there are a lot of middlemen that you really just can't get away from, making sure that a lot of those intermediaries, what we would call them, making sure they're comfortable with that specific blockchain set is really important. So that's why when we talked about that earlier, for me, one of the biggest things was the fact that Avalanche was EVM compatible, Ethereum virtual machine compatible, meaning that it uses a lot of the same development resources and a lot of the same coding languages as Ethereum, which has been one of the most influential blockchains when it comes to actual real applications for blockchain sources and solutions. And so having a blockchain that specifically was focused around those more interoperable components, the fact that it can plug into a lot of the same ecosystem, it was really, really important for us. And that's something that we we significantly valued about the Avalanche blockchain. And then, as I mentioned, when it came to issuing this thing, for us, we knew this was a marathon, not a sprint. We knew that we were going to need to involve a lot of different partners. We knew we couldn't do it on our own. So making sure that we had a very supportive group of individuals that were actually building the real underlying protocol and actually doing a lot of the development and having them as an active support in this role, not only for us, but really specifically to make sure that Securitize was integrated and supporting of them as well was so important. And knowing that as we continue to try to push the envelope and drive innovation moving forward, considering the primary offering, this crowdfund is just the first step in what we see as a real long list of innovation that we can do, making sure that the blockchain team as well as the brokerage team were both aligned in the vision and made sure that they were communicating so that these realities could come to fruition were really, I think, the two biggest points for me. And then a few other ones that I also liked in terms of the low cost of this platform, the strong community, some of the other active solutions and seeing their track record and working through compliant offerings before, as well as building out protocols and decentralized applications. A lot of those things are also incredibly important, and it was important for us to consider. Not to mention the fact that they've also been really trying to build compliant securities from day one, and I've seen that as a priority for their entire suite of services. I think that probably rounds out my top 5.
Well, I'm going to have to put that up on a graphic on my wall because that was the best top 5 I've heard yet. So thank you, Kyle, for breaking that down. All right, we're going to take one more. Brick, thank you so much for the great question, and thanks for joining us today. We'll take the last one here for Excel AVAX. Excel.avax, nice. Got your new Abby domain, nice.
Hey, I just want to say thanks for having me up. Congratulations on your success. I had a question for Mike. Mike, you had mentioned that I guess security tokens are somewhat of, it's like a wrap token or it's a wrapper token. Number one, are these like ERC20 tokens? Like what token standard do they follow? And then 2, I guess when you're dealing with these different entities talking about tokenizing their assets, do you guys like foresee a future or do you have conversations about potentially allowing retail and end users to use these security tokens to participate in DeFi? Like we can use them as collateral, we can use them in yield farms, things like that.
Yeah. So just first off, thank you to everybody that participated and everybody that asked questions as well. I think that if you go to that pinned tweet, you could see the the business ecosystem that we have. And specifically, when you click on the bit.ly link on slide 5, if you're interested in really how these tokens are created, you can see that we have our DS proprietary protocol, because you were asking about ERC20 tokens, and ERC20 isn't actually up to the snuff of the regulatory bodies. So we actually have our own proprietary protocol that we created, and we utilize these 4 networks, and Avalanche being one of them, in our tokenization engine. And that's actually how these digital asset securities or security tokens are created. It's really tough to speculate on DeFi because just where our industry is, the laws are still catching up to things like, we don't even have a spot Bitcoin ETF passed yet. And Bitcoin, yeah, I know. I see you're laughing on that. And Bitcoin's been around for over a decade. So, think about how much further along DeFi is. And, I don't want to speak for Securitize. I have my own visions of where things will go eventually. But, just for the sake of not speaking out of context or anything, when it comes to regulatory type stuff, I don't want to speculate on the future where DeFi could be going. But, I think some of your statements about where it might be in the future with bringing these things in, if the regulators approve it, it's definitely technically possible.
The one piece I'd add to that is just that we track these markets, right? So I see what's going on around the world. And certainly we've seen examples of DeFi being leveraged with security tokens. I think Mike makes a great point. We can't promise anything. We can't even really speculate on what's going to happen with regards to our platform and to everything that we're building. We're really just focused here on the crowdfund. But when I look at around the world, we see companies like Realty here in Boca, just north of Miami. They've tokenized over 200 real estate properties. They're on the Ethereum blockchain on a layer 2. And they actually have full integration with Av and do leverage the collateralized lending. And we see Relio, which is a company, I think they may be using Algorand, and they've built their own decentralized exchange to provide liquidity for their platform. Mount Peleron as well has been working through a lot of these solutions. So there are great examples of security tokens being leveraged in this way. And so we hope that for the future, that can be something that can continue to be built, as well as the fact that we need to help regulators understand what these solutions can be and figure out what's the best way to do that sustainably. So I definitely think that we've seen precedent of some of those examples around the world, and hopefully one day we can build that for our markets as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great question. And that was an awesome way to end it, because I think this is definitely important information to just understand how kind of it works in the back end too. So with that, we're going to close things out. For our guest speakers, any last parting words for the community here? Why don't we start, Megan, with you?
Nothing specific. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in and learning more about security token market. We do have media pumping out constantly, not only covering the security token space, but the industry in general and, supporting acts. So please definitely follow us, and we will be reporting back with all of the, breaking news as we see the securities industry kind of come to fruition.
Awesome. How about you, Mike?
Just very grateful to be here. Thank you, Avalanche. Thank you, STM. I mean, I can't believe the strength of both of your communities. The amount of notifications that I got on my phone with the things that I was tagged in and all the retweets and likes, it's pretty incredible. And I mean, talking about network states, I know that was a popular book that just came out a couple of weeks ago. The community and shared values that we have for Web3 and the future of financial services and the internet is really powerful. And I think that this is just a global movement where following data and things that STM has to offer, really check them out. And also, obviously, this is mostly an Avalanche community, so most of the benefits there. And we really believe that network will stand the test of time and be around for a reason. So thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Mike, for joining us. Kyle, how about you?
Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been a tremendous panel. I really appreciate Morgan and Kyle, you guys hosting this event, and Mike for coming. Megan is always incredible. And everybody listening, we've had hundreds of people checking this out throughout the hour. I hope you've learned a little bit about what's going on. And if you want to learn more, go to our link in my description or in STOmarket, our company Twitter handle as well. Go to that link. It's bit.ly/investstm, and that's going to direct you directly to the Securitize page that has all of the information around the deal. You can do a little more research, as well as the fact that I have a full 20-minute pitch of our deck where you can actually understand what STM's doing. You can learn more about the business. We've got a 5-part documentary series detailing our journey through Miami over this last 12 months, and we have a whole host of amazing information and content through our YouTube channel at Security Token Market. We recently got verified, which is pretty cool over there. And you can watch all of our stuff there, subscribe to newsletters, do our media, share us some love, and join the Discord for token trivia that we do every Thursday, which is a ton of fun with the community. So thanks to you again, everybody, for having me. And feel free to reach out. My DMs are always open.
Amazing. I just need a tutorial on how to present like Kyle. That's my takeaway from this.
On the next Avalanche Spaces.
On the next Spaces. But
tutorials.
To that point, I would just echo everyone's sentiments. Thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. If you have any other questions, we have a ton of resources both on STM, on Securitize, but also on Avalanche, pinned here, and also on all of our Twitter accounts. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter directly. Otherwise, again, thank you guys for joining. Kyle, thank you so much for hosting. And we'll see you soon. Talk soon.